الحمد لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. We make it a point to try to make our lives orderly. I think we all have this desire to sort of get things under control and try to stay organized in such a way that we are able to thrive and succeed. And it's interesting that perhaps the most important aspect of our life that we should try to get under good control is the life within our home. Meaning, if our home life is good, and all of the different aspects that contribute to our home life are good, then our chance of success both in this life and the akhirah go up significantly. But if our home, and our house in particular, and our home is a battleground for conflict, then it becomes very difficult for us to thrive and succeed in any endeavor that we have. This is just a general principle I'm describing. And it's unfortunate because in this day and age, it seems like the home is the place which really should have the most amount of sukoon, the most amount of comfort, the most amount of solace, has almost become a battlefield for so much of humanity. That we're more comfortable when we're outside the home because when we come inside the home, there's constant conflict. Whether it be marital conflict, whether it be parental conflict, or whether it be some other form of conflict. The home should be that sort of a place where when we return to it, we feel a sense of joy and contentment that we don't experience anywhere else. But unfortunately, in just hearing so many different issues over the last several years, it seems that that's not the case. That for many people, the home is that place that's really brought them a lot of difficulty, sadness, and grief over the years. But if we make it a point to try to get our house in shape, and I say house, I don't mean our physical house, but really I'm referring to our home in shape, we can expect success on so many different fronts. So in thinking about this, I was thinking that, it would be nice to have a series of sessions pertaining to this topic. And a couple of years ago in this center, we had done this exact seminar. And it was a series that was on every single week on essentially 10 ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ that either directly or indirectly related or tied into how to fill our home with love. And I thought that, I'm here once a month anyway, why not revisit those hadith because there's so much value that's contained within it. And because that seems to be one of the major needs of our time, which is trying to understand how is it that I can actually make my home a place of warmth and love rather than a place of hate or disgust. And how is it that I can make my home a place where myself, my family, my children want to be, and how it can be a source of success for every single person within it rather than a place of recurrent and constant failure. So that's going to be the plan, inshallah, moving forward. For the next, maybe 10, 12 months or so, at least I'm here once a month, we'll be touching upon one hadith each month in the Jumu'ah Khutbah pertaining to how exactly we can bring love into our home. Now I'm going to begin with one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. This is the first hadith that we'll start with, and this kind of puts things into perspective. This is a very famous hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentions or makes a statement. It's narrated both in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ says that إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ الْعَبْدَ نَادَى جِبْرِيلٌ إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحْبِبْهُ فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيلٌ فَيُنَادَى فِي أَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبُّوهُ فَيُحِبُّهُ أَهْلُ السَّمَاءِ ثُمَّ يُوضَعُ لَهُ الْقَبُولَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. This is a very famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ tells us, gives us this broad picture of what love really entails. and how love is truly acquired. Now, I think it's important for us to just take a step back and understand there are many forces in the universe, and perhaps the most powerful, dominant force and most effective force compared to any other force is that force of love. It can take over societies and countries. It can take over concepts and understandings. Love is a very powerful force. And the second thing to understand about love is that every human being has an inherent need to be loved. Every human being has an inherent need to be loved. And if a human being doesn't feel loved, be it by some person or some being, then we can expect that some difficulty and trial and trouble will come into their life. It's part of the reason that eventually people go on to become very violent criminals. It's because as a child they didn't receive the love that they actually need. This is proven. This is well understood. Every human being has a need to be loved, and when a person doesn't feel loved fully and properly, that's when all of these other negative traits begin to manifest, especially later in life. Now, in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is now reframing love for us, and he's telling us what happens when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a person. Because if our hope and our goal and our desire is to bring love into our own home, we have to look at what the source of love is altogether. What is the ultimate source of love? Because if I can seek love from that ultimate source, then most certainly it's going to penetrate the doors and the walls of my home as well and fill that space with love. So the Prophet ﷺ says that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a servant, what does he do? He calls upon Jibreel alayhi salam, right? The most famous of his angels. And he says, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so. Allah ta'ala tells Jibreel that I love such and such person. So you too should love such and such person. And as a result and as a consequence, فَيُحِبُّهُ Jibreel alayhi salam then loves that person. And then he calls upon the skies, fi ahli sama, amongst the people of the heavens, meaning all of the angels and all of these heavenly beings, Jibreel alayhi salam calls and says, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves such and such person. Allah ta'ala loves such and such person, so you too should love such and such person. فَيُحِبُّهُ أَهْلُ السَّمَاءِ. As a result and as a consequence, the people of the heavens, or let's say the beings or the inhabitants of the heavens, also love that person. ثُمَّ يُوضَعُ لَهُ الْقُبُولَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And as a consequence of this, or subsequent to this, let's say, all of the inhabitants of the earth, and all of the inhabitants of the universe, we can say, all then are forced to fall in love with that person as well. It's a very remarkable hadith. What the Prophet ﷺ is telling us is that if we are seeking to attract the love of people, and we seek to be loved by people, well then our priority should be to attain and acquire the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when Allah ta'ala loves a person, He then makes the rest of all of creation also love that person. This is the consequence of Allah's love. First, angel Jibreel, the heavenly beings, and everything else that exists on earth. And that's quite remarkable. Because in this day and age, we do whatever we can to try to attract the attention of people. If I want people to like me, then I'm going to post this very fancy video of what I did on my last trip, and as a result, I might get 100,000 likes, and now people actually love me. But obviously, that's not true love, right? That's just someone who's, is impressed with one particular aspect of your life. If I want people to truly love me, then the solution is that I have to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to love me. Or I have to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love me. Because when Allah loves me, no matter what I may think or what other people may think, people will be forced to fall in love with me. People will be forced to fall in love with me. And I've seen this with my own eyes so countless times, that we interact with people who this person is truly connected to Allah ta'ala, and we suspect and we expect that Allah Ta'ala must have some special love for this person. And so many, and all of humanity seems to be attracted to this person as well. People that believe, people that don't believe, people that have all backgrounds and walks of life seem to have this special love for this person as well. Maybe you've met these sorts of individuals. It's because Allah Ta'ala has loved them, and people are left with no choice but to love them. So we begin with this hadith. And it's important to understand this concept, which is that if I have a goal that I want to bring love within my home, then I have to make it a priority to first and foremost attract Allah's attention. Because when Allah's love and attention is upon me, then naturally the home becomes filled with love. People begin to love one another. People are forced to love one another. The child that I had no relationship for the last 5 years, now Allah loves me. Allah Ta'ala will force, through the angels, will force even my child to love me, and vice versa. If I have someone that I've not had a good relationship with, but I make it a point to attract Allah's attention through obedience of His, and a consequence of that is Allah loves me, I can expect not just the people in my home, but all of society to also begin to love me as well. My colleagues, my co-workers, everyone. But again, the focus being the home. So we should make it a point to seek the love of Allah. Because that's the starting point when we're trying to have a discussion on how to have a healthy, thriving, livable, and lovable home. It's to seek the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm going to conclude with 2 points, right? These are 2, you could say, action items that we can sort of take with us. The first is, as a talking point within our home, obviously the overarching discussion here is that I need to draw myself close to Allah through the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, because if I attract Allah's love, everything else is going to fall into place. I really don't even have to do much more, right? True love of Allah. 2 practical take-home points. The first is, because love is such a dominant force, and because the love of Allah Ta'ala is the most dominant force on the planet, we should make it a talking point within our home. It should be a general goal of everyone, ourselves, our spouses, our children, our parents, that we should talk about the love of Allah Ta'ala and why it's important to seek and try to acquire that love. Because there's no better success than acquiring the love of Allah. So it should be a talking point in the home. You know, when we talk about deen in our home, our focus tends to be on what's halal and what's haram, what you can and what you can't do, what punishment you'll receive if you don't pray your prayer on time, what will happen to you if X, Y, and Z action occurs. But we should reshift our focus and our attention, especially when it comes to our children, but honestly, even amongst each other, is to appreciate the value of Allah's love and make it a talking point and a source of motivation for us within the home. So that's point number 1. The second is a dua that Dawood alayhi salam recited, and the Prophet ﷺ narrates this. It's in Sahih Tirmidhi, it's in the book of Imam Tirmidhi, this hadith. And that is, if I want to attract Allah Ta'ala's love, then I should ask for it. I should ask for it. One is I should be obedient so that He loves me as a result of that obedience. But number 2 is I should ask for it. There's a long dua, and I'm not going to narrate the entire dua, but the first portion of the dua, Dawood alayhi salam says, again, the Prophet ﷺ narrates this, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak. Simple. Oh Allah, I ask from you your love. I ask from you your love. You know, we have a tendency to ask for a lot of things. We ask for Allah's forgiveness, for His mercy, for blessing in our wealth. We ask for protection from the punishments of the hereafter. We ask for good in this world. And these are all important. But one thing we shouldn't leave in our daily du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to specifically ask, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak. Oh Allah, I ask from you your love. Because now I realize, based off of this hadith, that if you love me, Ya Allah, if I become your beloved, then everything else in my life will fall into place. My family, my friends, my children, my parents, they will all have no choice but to also love me. Because your love is the source ultimately of true love. So the hope inshallah is to continue this, and we'll pick one hadith, but the hope is that by implementing these teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, that our homes become places of happiness and comfort, and places of love and joy, and ultimately a place of sanctuary and safety that we're so dependent on in this day and age. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to appreciate the value of the home in this day and age. May Allah ta'ala allow us to truly become His beloved, and may He shower His love upon us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from amongst those that talk about love of Allah ta'ala abundantly within our home, and seek the love of Allah ta'ala in our supplications to Him. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر، وأشهدهم في أمر الله عمر، وأصدقهم حياء عثمان، وأقضاهم علي، وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة، والحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة، وحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسوله. اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبا، رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. عباد الله اتقوا الله واذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم، ولذكر الله تعالى أكبر، والله يعلم ما تصنعون.